Hello, everybody. Today, we're talking about airplanes and aviation photography. So stay tuned. Hello, everybody. Jonathan Rice here with the Creative Visualist. Thank you for joining me today. And we've got a treat. We are talking to my friend, Gary Daniels, who is an aviation photographer now, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Yeah, we'll say that. Welcome to the Creative Visualist,
Hey,
man.
thanks for doing this. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're going to do 7 questions with Gary. It's probably going to wind up being more than 7 when we're done.
Okay.
We're going to walk around and look at some great old aircraft. But we're going to talk to Gary about aviation photography. Now, Gary, you started out in design, right? I mean,
Right.
like I did.
Right. You and I, our careers have run side by side for 30 years.
Yeah.
Went from lowly designer to creative director to marketing director, VP of marketing. I've done the whole gamut. And just had a really fantastic career. And I've always enjoyed photography, and I've always enjoyed aviation, but I was only able to do it at an enthusiast level
Right.
as a hobby because I was raised in a family and had this job, right?
Right. So what got you interested in aviation? I mean, was it just like a childhood thing?
It
or?
was a childhood thing. You know, being a boy of the 60s, what did we all love so much? And it was space, the rockets,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And airplanes. And also, the 60s were a crucial time for the men of World War II. They were in their 40s while I was during the 60s.
Right.
And so every time I was around these gentlemen, listening to them, they're all vibrant in their careers, but I would always hear these World War II stories, and I really got hung up on World War II, and I started going to the school library and reading every book I could.
Oh, yeah.
Just learning about World War II, because my grandfather was in World War II.
Right.
And so I would just read about all that, and I just got enamored with it, and then I really got enamored with the air aspect of World War II and just the beauty of the aircraft and just the amazing stories about what that period of time was in aviation. And it just hung with me.
That's cool. That's really cool. Well, I got 7 questions. I think I just
Okay.
asked one, but let me look at my list here. Sorry, guys. So we covered that. So the question that I didn't ask, so what caused you to pick up the camera?
Well,
I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
Okay.
you've got a cool little camera in your hand right now.
I've got this 1930s Retina. Now,
Right.
this is the first camera that really got me started in photography, and it's not that I was shooting with it.
Right.
This was my grandfather's camera. Now, he was in World War II, as you
Right.
I mentioned earlier.
Right.
He liberated this off of a dead German soldier during
Right.
the war. It's a 35 millimeter Kodak Retina. He carried this with him through the rest of the war. Took a lot of photos with it. I've got a lot of photographs taken with this camera.
That's cool.
Anyway,
This
as
is
a
so
young
cool. Can I
kid,
touch it?
yes, you
Yeah,
can.
it's really
And as a
neat.
young kid, he would bring that camera out every once in a while and let me hold it and let me touch it. I just became enamored with the
Manual
mechanics and
aperture, yeah, everything.
just how
Yeah.
awesome the camera is. But it also made me start thinking about photography at a young age. But when I became a teenager and started making a little money on my own, I was able to buy just a little Kodak and just started shooting it.
So now, did you take photography in college as one of the
I
electives?
did.
'Cause I did. I mean, I did that.
I did. I so loved what you were able to do with those silly cameras back then.
Yeah.
And so yes, I saved all summer long before my freshman year because it was a requirement. I had to have a 35 millimeter SLR.
Yes.
So I saved all summer
So
long.
what did you
and
get?
I
What'd you
got
get?
a Minolta SRT
Really?
202. Well, Minolta was big back then.
Yeah, see, I got the Canon AE1.
No, the Canon was an awesome camera.
Yeah, yeah.
The SRT 202 was the competitor to that. They were right there
Right,
neck and neck.
right.
I got the Minolta and started taking my photography classes and just started burning way too much film and spending all my money on film. And then I was able to go in and actually process the film and make the images in the photo lab there at school.
Right.
So it was really great to learn how to do all that.
So I got a follow-up question to my question. I always start out with 7 questions, and I never wind up having just 7. During the time, that 30-some-odd years you were doing design, I'll tell you what happened to me. I lost my love for photography.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really did during the 90s and the early 2000s. I wound up having to be the photographer always having to be the
Right.
photographer with the kids. And about probably, really, I stayed with it till about the mid-90s, and then I dropped. Did that ever happen with you, or did you stay with your love for photography during that time?
No, that's an interesting point. No, I actually loved it the whole way through. Now, me, being art director, creative director, VP marketing,
Right.
all that, there were some shoots that I would actually cover myself. But for the most part, I was hiring great shooters. And, living in the Dallas area back from the 80s on, man, did we have some great
We had some
talent and
great
still have
shooters.
great talent in Dallas.
Yes.
But we had some awesome shooters. And so I was able to hire those guys, and I would go to studio and sit back and just watch them work that light and work all of that. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. and it spilled over into my work. Although I never got into heavy lighting and stuff. I'm still pretty much an ambient shooter guy.
Right.
I like to work the shot, but I'll get some lights out occasionally. But for the most part, I just work the shot as is.
And the follow-up to my follow-up is what got me back into photography was the world of digital.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason for me, I'm really an illustrator and designer by
And
trade.
you're very good too.
Well, you don't have to say that, but that's all right. But what I like about the digital is I can go in and manipulate the photographs,
It's
right?
beautiful. It's wonderful,
And
isn't it?
it really enthused me to go out and buy. I'm like on my 4th or 5th camera now in the last 10 years, and which I think we all do. But it's one of those things where, for me, it was an extension of my illustration. But you and I have had this discussion before. I don't consider myself a photographer. I consider myself a photo illustrator when I do photography. I think you're really, truly a photographer. I mean, you go out and you can go into a situation. So,
Well, let me add to what you just said. You are a very good photographer. You use the camera as another pencil to what you do, right?
yes, that's the way I
That's
the way I
to
look at
put
it. That's
right.
exactly the way I look at it.
Me, I use the camera as my way to capture that canvas. I didn't switch over to digital till 2007 because I could do high-res scans off my film negs and make good 40-inch prints out of it. And up until 2007, well, you couldn't even really hardly in 2007, but the cameras were getting good enough that digital file was getting close,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then when RAW happened,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
that, what you said earlier about the digital revolution, it has completely altered what photography is. And what I love to see is how many people are involved in photography now because it is so incredible. And the other thing about RAW is what you can do to that image. If you blow a shot, let's say you shot something quick action and you're 2 stops under. Back in the day, I'd take that piece of film and toss it in the trash.
Right.
Now in RAW, I can save that image.
Yeah.
It's wonderful what we can do now.
That's true. That's true. That's okay. That's really cool because RAW actually helps you solve a lot of problems.
It sure does.
So that leads to my next question. You got involved in aviation photography. What are the challenges in aviation photography? Because you're shooting outside. You're subject to the weather. You're subject to that big ball in the sky. I mean, what challenges in aviation photography are unique to aviation photography, and how do you overcome them?
Okay. Well, first off, to guide you, why did I get into aviation photography? I always have loved the airplanes.
Right.
Aviation is one of the true miracles of humanity. And photography is one of the true miracles of humanity. And those two together I've just really been fascinated with.
Right.
Why do I love the airplanes? The beauty of design that it takes to make an aerodynamic machine is just fascinating me. The way the wings join to the fuselage, the cowling shapes, just the wonderful curves.
Right.
If you look behind us, it's
Yes.
1937 Ryan. This is
great.
a classic, beautiful airplane. Yeah. And you see this. Also, I treat these airplanes with a bit of reverence. Later, we'll show some footage of a T-6. Now, this is a historical airplane, and these airplanes were around in World War II. Americans went to war in these planes,
Right.
and I see them in a reverent spirit. I just really want to respect them, and I want to capture them. One of the reasons I love aviation photography is the history of these aircraft. They are truly historical monuments, and they deserve to be restored and flown so that the public can see them. This airplane is an AT-6 F, and it was restored by Lanny Parcell. Beautiful example of a World War II trainer. And so many men took their advanced training in this type of aircraft and then went on to advanced combat aircraft and fought in the war, and many did not return. So these airplanes, to me, I hold them in reverence, and I love photographing them. So why aviation photography, and what are the challenges? There was just this natural blending, loved airplanes, loved cameras. Okay, natural blending there. The challenges of aviation photography, if you're shooting an airplane static on the ground, really no challenges. You're just working the shot, playing with the lighting, however you want to do that. The challenges are when that aircraft is moving. You always need to think safety, because a moving aircraft is a dangerous thing. Of course, you have that spinny thing on the front, and that will mincemeat you in a heartbeat.
Called a propeller for you young people who have only flown in jets.
So you need to be aware of that. Now, if you're around a jet, same thing. You've got issues there with that jet engine, with that turbine sucking in air, and also loud noise, always hearing protection. So whenever you're around moving aircraft, your head needs to be on a swivel, making sure that there's nothing around you that's about to happen, that you're completely spatially aware of what's happening while that airplane is moving.
Unlike the Nazi in Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's right. That was bad.
That was bad. He wasn't swiveling his head.
So anyway, so the other things you think about are, which you wouldn't, is, okay, what am I trying to capture? Let's say I'm photographing this airplane and it's on the move, on the taxi, engine turning. Well, you know, there's an RPM to that engine, right? So I'm thinking shutter speed. When I shoot an aircraft, I'm shooting shutter priority, so I can walk my shutter back and forth.
Oh, you're not shooting aperture.
When that airplane's on takeoff RPM, that prop is spinning higher, so I may move that shutter to an 80th or 100th, and I'll get a really pretty prop blur.
Yes.
If it's taxiing, it's on idle. It's just a little bit above idle, so I'll step that shutter down to maybe a 30th or even a 20th if I can handhold that pan well enough to get that nice prop blur. One thing I hate about an aviation shot is you've got this beautiful airplane in flight, and the prop is frozen because somebody shot it at a 500th or 1000th. Looks like a dead engine in flight.
Right.
You want that prop to be nicely blurred.
Yeah.
If you're doing an air-to-air from another aircraft, there needs to be proper safety briefings on how you're going to work this whole shoot, how you're going to fly your formation, the shots you're going to get while you're in flight.
Right.
And then while you're in flight, you're thinking those, once again, all those shutter, how you're wanting to get a full prop blur or partial, just whatever that airplane's
doing. So you're doing a
everything
pre-production meeting before you
Absolutely.
get up in the aircraft.
You're also thinking about the background, because so much of flight is the beauty of the earth behind it.
Well, okay, so that goes back to the sun. You have to be conscious where the sun is, right? Because it could ruin your shot.
Well, for example, let's say we'll do an aerial and I've got an aircraft orbiting right next to us. Right. Well, we'll do an orbit to where we walk through that entire light cycle from the lights on my side, the camera side of the plane, and then we'll keep orbiting. Now the lights on the other side to where I have more of a silhouette.
Right.
And believe it or not, I've gotten some beautiful silhouette shots, some beautiful three-quarter view shots, some
little
beautiful
sunburst coming
lights
through.
right on it.
Oh, yeah.
So when you're in flight, and you're also aware of that background, if you're shooting and you're over a city, I don't like to shoot that much. You've got buildings and houses and whatnot, roads and whatnot. I like to get out into the open and just the beautiful ground below, or maybe even over water. You know, this earth it's a beautiful canvas behind the airplane, and the airplane is flying in this space, and to capture that space with the airplane in it, it makes a great shot.
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. We'll actually I'll put some of Gary's photos. Matter of fact, I may go back and put them over what you just said. I may put some samples of what he just described, because his stuff is gorgeous. And there was one that you shot at an air show, and I swear you shot it from the air and you shot it from the ground. It was the Blue Angels? Or the Thunderbirds. I can't remember which one.
And now a lot of these shots, are shot maybe at an air show, and just depending on the angles that you're getting, some of them almost do look like you're.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like it was. I think they were in formation, flying straight across, the frame like that, and I thought you were in another plane, even with them. But I guess just as low as they were, the angle you were at, you were probably shooting with a really long lens.
Absolutely, long lens. I have met so many fantastic aviation lovers and photographers that do great work, and I've learned so much from them. And I'm shooting this video so much for them as well too.
Right.
Just there's so much great work out there. I know some awesome guys, and in the world of aviation photography, the ones that are truly shooting the beautiful aerials, that's a very small niche. There's not much room to get into that,
Right.
and it's pretty much saturated. And those folks are doing stunning work. So when I get a chance to go up and do an awesome aerial, I just consider myself so lucky.
Yeah, that's great. Let's move on and just talk about post shooting. I like to do a lot of heavy manipulations, but I get the sense that you're kind of more of a purist in some ways. You don't do much manipulation, right?
Two reasons why. I do to some degree. I mean, I really love to work a little bit on contrast, a little bit of sharpening, some color
And
correction.
that's just moving
this and that.
sliders around.
Yeah,
though.
exactly.
You're not going in and replacing backgrounds, right?
And sometimes I do that. I certainly do. Sometimes I do composites. It just
Right.
depends on the shot. But for the most part, I'm trying to capture the beauty of that aircraft. And also, when you use these images for publications, they don't want them heavily manipulated.
Right.
So, but I have done a lot of manipulation. As a matter of fact, I'll give you one or two that you can put in.
Oh, that'd be
in the
great.
video.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Because I know a lot of photographers have a real, I don't want to heavy manipulate it. I don't care. You know what I mean? To me, it's my pencil.
You're a photo illustrator.
I'm a photo
Right.
illustrator, so I will take a sky that I shot 2 months earlier because it was gorgeous up in
Right,
West Texas,
right.
and I'll marry it with something else that will make it look, really, really, just bring it to that next level. And the thing is, for me, when I'm shooting, I do composite work, but I do love landscapes. Skies are so important.
Yes.
So I'm assuming with aviation, let me ask you your druthers. Do you love blue skies or do you like a little clouds in the sky?
Like anything, you work with what you have.
Right. But what's your preference?
My preference is an awesome light with some clouds back there.
Yeah.
That I can, the beauty of what's behind that airplane. If you look at the best aviation illustrators, they do fantastic illustrations of the aircraft, but their backgrounds are stunning.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's part of it. That airplane's flying up there in the beauty of this earth, and the background to me is just as important.
Right.
But let me tell you, I've gotten some great shots on a really cloudy, yucky day, and with that plane zooming through something awesome, and you just work it, and you've just got a neat
I
atmospheric
feel
image.
that way too, and I think you guys should understand that you make the best of your situation. And Gary's talking about, working with what God's giving you, but even he's not opposed to taking the miracle of the technology and making
working
your
it.
shot better. So I think that you should be open to do that. But be conscious, like you said, if you're selling to publications, they are going to want something more. I know
Right.
sports photographers same way. They can't do anything but move the sliders. They can move the contrast and the saturation, and that's about it.
Right.
But just be conscious of that. So you have touched on your love for World War II. Your grandfather serving, his camera, everything like that. You got to do something a few years back that was really cool, that was World War II related, and you actually traveled overseas. Can you tell us about that?
Oh my goodness, you're talking about the Normandy trip.
And what did you do, and why did you?
First off, Normandy, for those that do not know watching this video, June 6, 1944
Right.
was the invasion day of Fortress Europe. It was the beginning of the last 11 months of the war, which was actually the most brutal time of the war in
Right.
Europe. Those 11 months from France to Germany's capitulation. But
Right.
June 6, 1944, the Allied forces landed at the beachheads in the Normandy region of France, and this is near St. Mère-Église, Caratan. If you look at your map, you'll see that
Right.
area. Okay, one of the most amazing stories that you've seen out of D-Day, we've seen it all of our lives in the movies, was the paratroopers that went in literally that night of trying to prepare behind the lines for the troops that would be arriving in the morning.
before they landed on the beach, right?
Up in Frederick, Oklahoma is an amazing organization called the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team, and this organization is dedicated to remembering and honoring and serving the American Armed Forces through the airborne experience. They have 2 C-47s that are painted out in D-Day paint schemes. They jump from these aircraft. You can do 9-day paratrooper training. They're authentic. Authentic in uniforms, authentic in aircraft. And what they do is they go to these events and do these airborne drops so that people can understand what it truly looked like. Well, the French government invited them to come to Normandy to drop on some of the actual drop zones on the 70th anniversary, which was June 2014. So I went with them over there. Their group, along with other groups, came. We had about 100 paratroopers and several aircraft. And that whole week I covered the airborne drops, flew on a couple of those drops, and just had an incredible experience.
You got some good photographs out of that, didn't you?
Oh my goodness, it was something to behold, and also to be in those towns that were liberated by the American troops, and how the French still love the Americans. And our guys would dress in their authentic World War II attire, and it was just nothing but a week of hugs and thank you, and then the airborne drops. It was truly an experience.
That's cool. What would be your next dream assignment? Is there something out there Gary Daniels would love to do that, you know, if he could just, his wish list of assignments that he could go ahead and do?
You know, if I could get on with an aviation company and covering their marketing and photography for them and being around airplanes all day long and photographing airplanes all day long, I would love it. That would be just fantastic for me.
Well, let's make that happen.
Let's
you
make it
guys out
happen.
there know, just let him know. I mean, this guy, I'll tell you what, Gary is a phenomenal designer, first of all. Just a great designer. And he also is an outstanding photographer. And on top of that, a man of integrity that I've known for a long time. And just a great guy.
I'll give you $20 later.
All right, that's all right. You should pay me. To the question, we're down to our last of the 7 questions. And I thought, you know, we're both getting up there in years.
Well, you are.
And so, yeah, I know. Well, you know, I'm like falling apart. But do you have any advice for somebody that wants to get into aviation photography? I mean, or the creative field in general? I mean, what is something that you've learned? I really like the aviation photography because it's kind of what the whole gist of this show is about. What's your suggestion? I mean, it could be anything. It could be philosophical. It could be, you know, equipment to get, or you know, whatever. But what would be your suggestion to somebody just getting into this or wanting to get into this?
First of all, let me say how envious and jealous I am of anyone who's 22 years old, starting their career with today's camera equipment and video equipment.
True. Yeah.
What the power and what is available now is just light years from what you and I started with.
Yeah.
So when I actually get angry that I'm in my 50s when I finally got to start playing with digital.
Yeah.
So 30 years prior, at my house, I've got boxes with literally thousands and thousands of negatives in slides that I don't know what to do with. And so to see the young folks starting out with the power of digital is just fantastic. And what it's going to be in the next 30 years. And 30 years from now, what's it going to be?
Right.
Now, as far as aviation, if that's your love, well, as a young person, start hitting those major aviation companies. Go out to local airports, meet people with airplanes, ask them to take pictures of their planes, work your way up to learning how to be safe around aircraft, then work with other photographers that have done aerials and learn how to do that, and start building a portfolio. Another thing is document these historic aircraft. Keep documenting them because, you know, these airplanes are 70 plus years old now, because of these amazing people like Lanny Parcell, but as a matter of fact, we're in Lanny Parcell's hangar right now, who is a master aviator himself, but he restores
and
these
he's doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, you know, he's restoring some old planes right now.
Absolutely.
You know, and hopefully you're seeing this footage as we're talking. I mean, he's restoring, what's that big plane that he's got we saw when we walked in, it had the wings off. And he's
a Lockheed 12's another project. Yeah. Lanny is one of the few out there that are taking these aircraft and restoring them back to flying condition in this beautiful state, so that we can see them and appreciate them and know history.
Are these guys and gals doing this? Are they pretty friendly if you walk up and say, "Hey, I want to take a picture of your aircraft"?
One thing you'll find out about the aviation community is they are outstanding people. They're very independent, they're very resourceful, they're super smart, and they're all great people. And you walk into their hangar and just say, "Sir, I saw your airplane, can you tell me a little about it?" And the switch will turn on, and 1 hour later, you're still talking airplanes. I love it.
So don't be shy. I mean, I think that's one.
Don't be shy.
I did
That's a
out
good
of that.
point.
It's like,
There you
don't
go.
be shy.
Don't
Go
be
talk
shy.
to these people.
Absolutely.
You know, I've only gone to one air show, and I probably should go to more. I should go with him. I mean, this is his passion, but it is fun. I will
Well,
say
come
that.
with me and carry my stuff.
I'll come with you and carry my stuff. My camera's smaller than yours.
Oh, there you go.
But one of the things is that, you know, everybody has a local air show, or within driving distance.
Sure.
Go to a local air show, walk around,
Right.
learn these people, do what he said, talk to these people. Some of them even have special times for photographers. You may have to pay for a pass, but you can get in early. I know the Alliance Air Show that I went to, I was there at like 5 o'clock in the morning because I'd paid for this early
Right.
thing, and I got in and I was able to walk around and take pictures
Good
with
for
me
you.
and maybe 30 or 40 other photographers.
And thank you for mentioning the air shows. Another thing is I'm co-founder of a meetup group, Dallas Aviation Photography Group. We have about 250 members or so, and we host events where these folks that just want to be around airplanes come, and we teach them a few things or let them shoot around a few things. We also have a really vibrant aviation community in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Right.
Kavanaugh Flight Museum is one of the best museums
Right.
in the region.
Now, where's that?
It's over in Addison, Texas.
Addison, Texas.
Be sure to go to Kavanaugh Flight Museum. They've got 4 hangars of incredible aviation history, and we do events over there where they allow us through our meetup group and their photo group. We'll roll out some historical aircraft, and then we'll light it, do fantastic shots, turn that thing on, engines burning and turning,
So you
and
get
just
the propellers moving,
Oh, yeah,
so you get that nice
we do some
propeller
real nice
blur.
work over there.
Yeah.
And we're really thankful to Kavanaugh Flight Museum for letting us do that.
Well, I'm thankful for you for doing this, and I really do appreciate you taking the time. And Gary, I'm going to put links up to Gary. You got a website?
I do.
Okay, what's your website?
Well, it's more on my creative side. It's got a few aviation shots. I'm still working on an
Right.
aviation site, but daniels-creative.com.
Okay, and we'll put that up on
Well,
the
thank you.
And in the show notes. It'll be there for you guys. And if y'all have questions for Gary, and if you want to leave questions down in the comments area, do it. And as always, I'll try to give them to whoever I'm interviewing, and they hopefully can answer it. But I appreciate you taking the time. This has been fun. And any last words before we say sayonara?
Just get out there and use that camera. Just have fun with it. It's too strong of a medium. It's too fun of a medium. And all of you photographers out there, just keep on shooting. That's what I'd say.
That's it. And you get a chance, hit the subscribe button. I appreciate it. Share this with your friends, anybody you know that's interested in photography and aviation photography in particular. Hopefully they'll find this very helpful and resourceful for them. And as always, as he said, keep on shooting. My line is keep on creating. See you guys later.
Blue skies, everyone.